Hey, good evening, my friends. How are you? Welcome to another edition of Wednesday Night Live with me, Mike Avery, here on many of my social media outlets. So glad to have you along with us as we continue our celebration, our investigation, our encouragement of the outdoor lifestyle here in the great state of Michigan. Encouragement for you to get out there, get involved, kind of keeping an eye on things. And it is a wonderful time of year to be out there, isn't it? It is the whitetail rut. Firearm season starts 1 week from today. So as a result, I probably won't be doing a Wednesday Night Live or a Behind the Mic next week. Cliff, good evening. How are you, buddy? Gene, nice to have you along with us as all. Randy, a pleasure. How are you this evening? Made it in time this week. Looking forward to the MUCC talk. I'm glad you're with us. Hello, Ted. Randy, how are you? My good buddy Craig, always a pleasure, man. How are you? Brent checking in from the Spirit game. What's the score? Did they start yet? Uncle Johnny. Where's Uncle Johnny? There you are. Good evening, Uncle Johnny. How are you? Nice to have you with us. Lori, haven't heard from you a while. No, I think you were here with us last week. Paul. Hey, Captain, where'd you go? Captain, right back at you, buddy. Well, Brad Wanless. Okay. Nice to have you with us, Brad. But where did we go? There we go. Captain Jim, always a pleasure. Again, Brad, thank you for joining us. Jim checking in from Tennessee. Dan, Paul, Jason, soon to be Trinity Monitor Elder. Congrats, buddy. Rick Martin. I enjoy your music, Rick. Oh, that's Ricky Martin. I don't enjoy Ricky's music. 5 minutes to face off, Brent says. Corey is still in Missouri. I forgot to post your picture. Denise, good evening. How are you? Martin, congrats on that big, beautiful buck. Jerry is not fishing. Hi, Mike. Anyway, my friends, how are you? My name is Mike Avery. This is another edition of Wednesday Night Live, something we do every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock Eastern. I always also do a Behind the Mic segment from the radio studio Wednesday mornings at 8:45. But again, I do not plan to do this next week because next Wednesday is November 15th. I'll be in the woods in the morning. I'll be in the woods at night. So I probably will not be doing a Wednesday Night Live, but I suspect you will forgive me of that. A lot of things I want to talk about tonight, but I've got a special guest standing by, and I don't want to leave her waiting in the wings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in our guest, and we'll talk to her for a while. Her name is Amy Trotter. You know Amy. She's a good friend of the Outdoor Magazine Show, a friend of mine as well. She's the executive director of MUCC. MUCC, Michigan United Conservation Clubs, a group that I have much respect for. I think they do a wonderful job. And Amy likes to join us here about once every 3 months. And guess what? It's time once again. Amy, welcome to Wednesday Night Live. How are you?
Very good. Thanks, Mike.
Always a pleasure to have you along with us. How is your fall going?
Fall's good. It's been a little busy with work, so unfortunately I haven't been outdoors as much as I would have liked, but I got to go to Trappers College, which is an experience that I would love to tell everybody about, but we want to get to their questions first.
All right, that sounds good. So, my friends, if you have a question for Amy, post it right here. If I see it, I will put it up here. If I don't see it, post it again. And usually somebody is standing by that can let me know. So if you have a question for Amy Trotter, post it here. The website is mucc.org, mucc.org. I'm going to start out with the first question, Amy. And this is kind of personal for me. So I have a dog in this hunt. House Bill 5108, the legislation that would allow a handful of commercial anglers, not tribes, but commercial anglers, to have access to sport fish with gill nets. What's the latest? Is that actually going to happen?
So this bill was just introduced less than a month ago now, and our community, the community of hunters and anglers of Michigan, came out strong against it. We flooded their inboxes, we flooded their voicemails with a lot of opposition. So even the people that co-sponsored this legislation some of them are even starting to back away and have some second thoughts and backtrack a little bit. So we did a good job. However, it's never say never until the session is done. So it's something we're going to have to keep watching. We do have an alternative view of the world. We have a bill that we want to support coming out very shortly, probably not yet this year, but early next year, hopefully, because we do need updates to the commercial fishing statute, but we do not want to give away game fish in those negotiations. So we are still at the table. We're watching it all the time. We hope to say that, 5108 in its version as introduced is dead. But, pieces of it, things could reemerge as this bill goes forward. So it's something that we're definitely keeping an eye on. And it's not as clean cut and easy as we thought it would be.
Just to expand on this a little bit more, but there is some commercial fishing legislation that you would like to see, for example, that would address that situation on Saginaw Bay last summer, where that trap net was full of fish for days and there was nothing illegal about it. You do want to address that, right?
Absolutely. It is time that we have modernized the statute. Unfortunately, every time we get into the weeds on this, it becomes whether or not game fish should be allocated to commercial harvest. And that's really just a bright line that we're not going to cross. And the commercial fishers don't want to talk about anything else. And so we never get to the actual regulations that need updating, like net tending. Now, our bill is going to say 10 days. Every 10 days, they should be checking their nets. 5108 says 30 days. Now, is there something in the middle that might be a compromise, or there might be a good reason to have something in the middle? Maybe. But we never get to even have that conversation because we continuously fight over the game fish issue. So, what is going to happen next year? I'm not sure. We are pretty well aware that 5108 is dead in its current form. But again, that may mean that everything is dead and we go another year again without updating that commercial statute.
Do you think in some ways the consent decree decision emboldened the commercial fishermen to reach out and try to get gill nets?
Maybe on the gillnet point, but this proposal was almost word for word what was introduced back in 2019 too. So it's not a new proposal. I mean, there's some tweaks to it. The gillnets piece is new, but lake trout, walleye, perch, bass are all on the menu as far as commercial fishermen are concerned, and that's not a new issue. They've been trying to get access to game fish for a while.
Amy, Jim Boot is asking about a sandhill hunt or a dove hunt. I'm convinced we'll never see a dove hunt again because we didn't stand up for it. What about a sandhill hunt? Anything new on that?
So sandhill cranes is something we continuously talk about with the Natural Resources Commission. One-on-one, a lot of them do have some support, but they've been really struggling with whether or not or when is the right timing to bring that forward on the agenda. So I don't really see it, definitely not in the next year. My bigger concern actually is losing the ability for the commission to name new game species at all. There are rumors at this point, no bill that I can point to, but there's rumors that there will be legislative packages dropped that would actually remove the commission's authority to even name new game species. So we really need to focus on defending what we have in terms of authorities before we can worry about using those authorities then at the NRC.
Where is this coming from?
It's really surrounding the conversation about wolves. So that's where it's come up because wolves are a game species. But if you remember the Scientific Fish and Wildlife Conservation Act that we all signed petitions for back in 2014, it named game species, wolves a game species, but it also gave the NRC authority to name new game species. Now, doves was one of those things that was negotiated away, but sandhill cranes was another opportunity. But this is all coming about because of the wolf piece. And so there is definitely a move by HSUS and those anti-hunting groups out there that are trying to take away authorities from the Natural Resources Commission.
Wow. Ed Bolanowski, Ed, do not look for baiting to come back for whitetails in the Lower Peninsula anytime in the near future. I can tell you that one for sure. Amy's thoughts on the new DNR director from Paul.
So Scott Bowen is our new DNR director. He comes to us, from a long history in state government from the Lottery Commission. And I'm not saying that because I'm judging his, knowledge or understanding of the outdoors. And in fact, I don't think there should be necessarily a outdoors test in order to be DNR director. But I think he's doing what he needs to do in terms of getting to know us. So he came to a 2-hour meeting last week, actually, with the Conservation Coalition, which is all of the statewide organizations here in Michigan. So you had around the table Pheasants Forever, you had Ducks Unlimited, you had the Steelheaders, you had MUCC. All of the groups came together and got to know him a little bit, hear a little bit more about what his priorities are. But I do think because he's new to the DNR, he is letting his chiefs and his deputy director take the lead on those natural resources issues. And he's really trying to do the administration of the big organization and dealing with, the employee side of things and the budget and all of those other interactions that make up running a big state agency like that.
DNR is a big state agency. Rick, to follow up on your comment, changing the rules so commercial fishermen having to check their nets. That is the proposed legislation that Amy and MUCC would like to get through. Josh, it is a federal issue. Good evening, Bernie. How are you? Mike, good evening. How are you? Well, because that's Canada and we're the United States, Michigan, so we have some different rules. I see restoring rainbow trout in the Au Sable. Isn't it cool that you can now target grayling? You can't keep them, but you can target grayling.
Yeah, that's a great new opportunity for people. And just so they're not prohibited from going in those waters where there are grayling and they may catch them. So it's really just to make sure that we all stay above board and we're law abiding, even if you're not trying to target grayling.
Tim is asking, do you guys, MUCC, have an opinion on using drones for tracking or basically recovering deer? Some states allow it. Has that come up with at your meetings, Amy?
It absolutely has. So MUCC took a firm stance against hunting with drones. And then we did have that same conversation, though, about tracking deer with drones or what big game recovery. And actually that was resoundingly defeated at our annual convention. So that's not something that we can support at this time. There's actually a lawsuit against the DNR right now, taking a look at that statute, because our interpretation is that it is currently illegal to do in Michigan, but there is an out-of-state group trying to challenge that interpretation right now.
Amy, I'm not going to ask you how many wolves there are, but I do know, based on Mike's question here, you are a member of the Wolf Advisory Commission or Committee. Anything going on there at all, or have you folks been kind of quiet for a while?
Nothing with the official advisory council, but I will say that last month I went up to the UP and saw a great presentation about a new survey that they are doing to count wolves in a different way. And they're using trail cams. And there are trail cams currently right all across the UP right now. And they're using artificial intelligence to basically look at the furry things on those cameras and do some sort of counting and distribution. And I couldn't tell you all the science about it. They're testing this method right now, but it is pretty exciting. And I think it's going to give us a lot of great information about the population of wolves at different times of the year, because they've been using only those winter counts for so long, and it makes it very confusing and really misleading when we talk about how many wolves we have here in our state. So this is just a new way of counting, and they're testing it out right now. I'm pretty excited about the opportunity, though.
So that's what these series of trail cameras, these cellular trail cameras that are set up that people are running into, that's what this is for.
It's actually not cellular, but yes, they are. Okay. They are all across the woods. You will see a QR code, I believe, with a website, so you can actually learn more about it as well. But it is a real thing, and I'm really excited about, because it has even implications beyond wolves potentially to look at moose and deer and how we just really assess a lot of these populations here.
Speaking of wildlife populations, I want to follow up on a question that was brought up on Wednesday Night Live several weeks ago. And Amy, you and I talked about this years and years ago, and it was the topic of feral hogs as an invasive species. We were worried that they were going to get out of control in Michigan. Apparently, obviously, that didn't happen, thank God. But what's the situation? How did that all shake out?
On feral hogs, we named them we named them an invasive species, which was actually critical to why we don't have a population today. We were able to attack them thoroughly and efficiently across the state. We were able to turn off the faucet where they were getting loose from game farms, where they were having high fence hunts of hogs. And that was really effective mechanism. So we've mopped up those populations for the most part now in the swamps and the low areas where they've gotten to. And, there are still some occurrences. Some people are still seeing them, but it is few and far between compared to what it was and what it could have been if we were not aggressive 10 years ago.
That's great to hear because there was real concern. And, I'm glad that in this case, the system was proactive and took care of it before it got out of hand.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, all across the South, they don't have that same experience, and they didn't do that. And, they're definitely seeing the problems from agriculture, from water quality, from even ground nesting birds and wildlife habitat. Feral hogs are having a real impact.
Yeah. It provides some good video of those guys hanging out helicopters shooting them, but we don't want to do that in Michigan. That's for sure. That's for sure. Hey, I had one of your people on the show today, Steve Wyndham. By the way, I was very impressed with Steve. He did a great job. And that will be on the Outdoor Magazine radio show this weekend coming up. But he talked about, I don't want to call it a membership drive that's going on right now, but he stressed the importance of membership and why you folks really want to increase your numbers. Can you tell me more about that, Amy?
Absolutely. I think the conservation community is really on a thin margin. If we were to suffer a really major ballot proposal right now, where is the war chest? Where is the millions of dollars that it would be required to defend something at the ballot right now? And the only way that we are going to build that and be strong as a sportsman and sportswoman community is by investing in organizations like MUCC, who have the institutional knowledge and the ability to marshal those kinds of resources quickly. So that's why we need members. We need to be able to talk to the outdoors community at large. We need to engage them, and we need to have their financial support in order for us to be strong so that we can defend or protect whatever comes our way.
Jeff asked an interesting question. You already addressed the new DNR director, but he also says members of the NRC that don't have backgrounds in the outdoors. Number one, is that true, Amy? And is that a concern? Should it be a concern?
Well, there's a brand new guy, so I can't say anything about him because I haven't met him yet to know, but it does sound he has some knowledge of the outdoors. I would say everybody sitting on the NRC right now has very good knowledge about some aspect of the outdoors. It's really hard to find a person that knows everything about everything when you join the Natural Resources Commission. But I do take issue with that. I do think they do have a great deal of respect and a great deal of interest in the outdoors. I just can't say that they do all of the things all of the time. And I think, just my perspective, deer is one of those things that we could have some people that are a little bit more diehard deer hunters on the commission to be able to understand the passion that comes with that.
Wasn't it HSUS or somebody who was trying to get an obvious, I don't want to say an anti-hunter, but a non-hunter on the NRC to have that perspective? Or is that a different group I'm thinking of?
That's actually a different group. So the Michigan Wildlife Council, is the group. So there has been a bill introduced, and that's another concern of ours, where they're trying to get, they call them non-consumptive wildlife users on these kinds of boards and commissions that are using our money and managing our resources. So the Michigan Wildlife Council is supposed to take hunter dollars and market all the good things that we do for wildlife conservation here in Michigan. It's a marketing, committee for hunting and fishing. And they want to take that, change the message, and add some of their people onto it. And that's just not something that we're going to stand for.
Ross says, Avery, you should get on the NRC. Ross, I'm not qualified and not interested, but Amy, it leads to a question. How does that process work? I mean, does somebody just say, hey, I want to be on the NRC, and they get voted in? Do they lobby for it? What's the process?
Well, I can tell you what the official process is. You have to apply. So there is an appointments director for the governor. It is a governor appointed position. And so you have to indicate your interest. It's an application just like a job. So you fill out a large application, you submit a resume. But yeah, you do need to be fairly well connected somehow in order to get your application to probably, hit the top of the pile, I would say. It also is required to be bipartisan, so no more than 4 of any one political party. So right now, with this new appointee, there are 4 Democrats. So the next appointee, the next individual that falls off, will have the replacement will have to be either an independent or a Republican.
And they term out, right? That's how they usually leave the commission, the NRC?
Yep, they have a 4-year term. Some people leave early, like Commissioner Leslie Love resigned early, and so this new individual is actually taking the remainder of her term, and then will likely be reappointed for a new 4-year term after that closes.
She's a very interesting person. I first met her at one of your events, and I thought that you guys were very smart in introducing a woman like that who really had no exposure to the outdoors, and showing her what the outdoor lifestyle was about. And she embraced it. She fell in love with it. And I thought she's the perfect example of what we need to be doing today.
My favorite moment with a legislator is when we took her out walleye fishing in the Detroit River. And she's from Detroit, had never fished the river. Never. And we took her out. It was the worst day ever. It was April. It started sleeting and then it hailed. It was awful weather and we were not catching fish, actually, even though, that I know it's supposed to be a world-class walleye fishery, but we were not catching fish. But when she finally got her one, you could hear her voice resonate up and down the river corridor. It was so great. And the best thing too is she took it home and she did a Facebook Live video and she cooked it and she ate it. And she told people that she was eating Detroit River walleye. And that was the most exciting thing, is to really validate that this is a, an opportunity in people's backyards that they should be taking advantage of. So I was thrilled with how that trip turned out, even though it was only one fish.
Emil Rousseau says, good old politics. You alluded to this earlier. We sound scientific wildlife management. Politics does become involved sometimes, and social science does become involved sometimes because we're humans and humans are not perfect, right, Amy?
Absolutely. I mean, you're seeing it right now at the NRC with the steelhead regulations they're wrestling with. They want to reduce bag limits on certain rivers to only one fish. And this is really coming from, the individuals who are already catch and release anglers only, but they see that there's some kind of thing happening in the river, and there's been a reduction in fishing success. And so they think we need to change something. And, the DNR biologists are telling us that there's nothing broken in the system, because largely a lot of anglers are already catch and release steelhead. But, they're going to make a decision that really is against what we know from a scientific standpoint, and what the biologists are telling us needs to happen. So that decision is tomorrow. So if you have an interest in that, tune into the NRC tomorrow from our live stream on Facebook.
Jim asked another question. Any CWD updates? I know you, Amy, at MUCC don't really keep track of this. It's a DNR thing, but has your membership given you any marching orders, sent you in any direction regarding how CWD is handled or anything along that line?
I think the biggest thing that we've really stressed is the availability of testing. We would like to see that hunters have good accessibility if they want to do a CWD test on their deer that they're going to consume. The other thing that's really caused a wrinkle is our Michigan Sportsmen Against Hunger, which now has to be CWD tested as well before going into that donation food stream. And we're seeing some bottlenecks happening. And so that's the thing with CWD that we're really working on, is making that CWD testing availability more widespread, and especially for that donated venison going into the food bank system.
Jeffrey raises an interesting point. He says sometimes he doesn't agree. He doesn't necessarily agree with you, Amy, but he respects us. And I think that's great. I don't always agree with MUCC. I actually do for the most part, but not always. But I'm still a member because I think overall you guys have our best interest at heart. And I think in the outdoors community right now, that's one of the things we need to be a little bit more tolerant. People criticizing other people online for keeping a steelhead, or shooting a small buck. Sometimes we are our own worst enemy.
I would say that's true. Yeah. I mean, especially when we get so focused in on just one aspect of the outdoors that we forget there's other things happening in the woods and during those times as well. And, and then it becomes a competitive nature as well. So, we really need to work through that and realize that we're all in the outdoors together and that the goal really should be conservation of our fish and wildlife and protection of our opportunities out there.
Amy, when is your next meeting? When do you start your meetings with MUCC members where you start to formulate policy?
Well, we are actually almost three-quarters of the way through that process before our annual convention. So our next opportunity is December 2nd. It's going to be at Perch Point Conservation Club, so Southeast Michigan. And we are going to have a great meeting. That is the last chance before our convention to get a policy into the queue to be debated then at our annual convention. Our annual convention is coming up March 8th, 9th, and 10th, and that's going to be up in the Sault Ste. Marie. So we are, three-quarters of the way through the process for this year, but there is still one last chance to get those resolutions in.
You moved the convention up. It used to be in the summertime, right?
Yep. So just this year and next year, we are doing them in March. We're going to see how it goes. It's always been a goal of mine to get it out of the summer busy time. Hopefully hotel rates are a little bit cheaper as well, and we're not competing with graduations and weddings and all of that other good stuff.
How do we join MUCC, Amy?
You can always join online. You can join as a member for $35 a year, $60 for 2 years, or a lifetime member for $1,000.
Anything we should talk about? Anything else we missed tonight, Amy?
There's so many things happening in the woods right now, but I just want to make sure that everybody is hearing me when I say, please enjoy it. Take advantage of those opportunities. And please be a mentor. I had a great opportunity to go to the Fur Takers of America's Trappers College this fall. So you can read about it in our next issue of Michigan Outdoors Magazine, actually, in our winter issue. But the mentors and the instructors that I had there really, really impressed me. And I think it really just tells a story of the outdoors that we needed to be doing more of, taking people out, introducing them, and starting where they're at. I am a novice trapper by every sense of the word. I know all the regulations. I know the why. I know the terminology, but I've never really set a trap until I got to go to Trappers College. And it was an 8-day intensive in the field, running my own trap line for 8 days. So it was an experience. I jumped in, neck deep, and I got a few raccoons out of the deal. So it was a really, really great opportunity. And I just want to, and we're going to be taking my daughters out this year. We're going to be taking them deer hunting. We've already taken them duck hunting. And now we're going to start this trapping tradition with my family. And so we're really excited about getting outdoors. And I just really encourage you to take new people out. My colleague, Nick Green, has taken, I think, 4 people out and gotten 4 first-time duck hunters in the last 2 weeks. So, that's the kind of stuff we're going to need to do to really combat all of the other things that are, shrinking those of us in the outdoor community.
Last quick question. Can any MUCC member attend the convention?
Absolutely. Every MUCC member can attend any of our meetings. They have the rights to speak on the floor. They just don't get to carry a vote unless they're representing their region or one of their clubs.
Very good. Amy, always a pleasure. Appreciate your time. I'll actually be seeing you and Nick next week, and I look forward to that.
Great. And we look forward to it too.
All right, Amy. Have a good night. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, everyone.
All righty. All right, that's Amy Trotter, Executive Director of MUCC, and just a really, really nice person. I always appreciate her time. Again, the website is mucc.org, mucc.org, if you want to sign up to become a member. All right, let's talk about some other things that are going on right now. It is the whitetail rut. As a result, I'm seeing a lot of pictures of nice bucks that are getting sent to me, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I cannot post a picture of a buck that I have shot yet, although Facebook is taking pictures that I have posted from others and posting them under my name, and it appears that I've shot a nice buck. If I shoot a nice buck like that, you will certainly hear about it. Let's look at some of the thunder and lightning in St. Joe right now, raining hard. Tim says, thank you, Amy. All the antis, whether it's fishing and buy license every protest, that would help conservation. Absolutely. Eric says, thank you, Amy. He loves listening to you. Thunderstorms and hail at his place, and you're in Midland. Hello, Lee. How are you tonight? Rob says, not seeing much of anything where he is except snow. Now, Rob is in White River, Ontario, Canada. White River, Ontario, Canada. Dean says, well done. Bruce says, great show. Well, it's a great show because Amy was with us. Amy always does a great job. Kathy says the same thing. Mike says the same thing. Jerry will be out with his 2 grandsons. How cool is that? Like Amy was saying, the future of our way of life is basically, I don't want to say it's completely in our hands because it's not, but we can certainly have an impact. She was talking about the Michigan Wildlife Council educating primarily the non-hunting and angling public in the southern part of the state. You might say, well, why do we care? We care because they have the votes and they have the power. So what we need to do is get as many people as we can on our side by exposing them to the outdoors, or at least not presenting ourselves in a negative manner. And what I mean by that is when you post pictures of your deer, will you put the tongue back in? It's a very, very small, minor thing. But if a non-hunter, not the antis, forget the antis, we'll never sway them. But if a non-hunter sees your picture of you smiling there with your buck, and they don't have any experience in it, they've never harvested a deer themselves. And remember, when you post it online, it doesn't just go to your friends. It can go to anybody, because I get this all the time. And that deer's tongue is hanging out of his mouth. That's a bad connotation. It makes you look goofy, if not bloodthirsty. And the poor deer, every time I see a picture of a deer with its tongue hanging out, I want to get in there and edit little stars in its eyes like a cartoon. Just no. Lee says he took advantage of the Avery Fall 23 promo on the Primal website. Go to primaloutdoors.com, primaloutdoors.com. That's one of the things I want to talk about tonight. Primaloutdoors.com. Use the promo code Avery Fall 23, Avery Fall 23. You can save 50% on a Primal blind, including the Wraith that I love so much, and the Vision. Primaloutdoors.com, primaloutdoors.com. Lance Valentine. Lance was on the Angler Quest podcast with me today. Thank you. Appreciate that, Lance. Hello, Brian. Where'd you go? Brian, you keeping an eye on our deer out there? Brian has some property real near our lease property, but he already has a big buck on the ground. I haven't even seen a big buck. I suspect what'll happen with me during this season is I'm going to end up shooting a doe during gun season, and I am completely happy with that. Tim Roller. Hey, Tim, congrats on your buck. If anybody is on my Facebook page, you saw the picture of the beautiful northern Michigan buck that Tim shot. I believe it was last night, possibly this morning, but I posted that on the Facebook page. Very well. Tim says, so how are you adjusting to the new hearing devices? I'm fighting getting them. Well, you got to do what you got to do. I didn't want to get them either, Tim, but somebody mentioned here on the page, they said, it was an email. They said, my wife told him, this is, a guy saying, his wife said that when his eyes started to go bad, he didn't hesitate to get glasses. So when your ears start to go bad, why is it that we fight hearing aids? That's a good point. That's a good point. Josh says, does taste great. Good evening, Matt. How are you? Nice to have you along with us on this edition of Wednesday Night Live. By the way, my name is Mike Avery. This is Wednesday Night Live. My email address, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. Would love to hear from you. Don't hesitate to send me pictures of your young person. Now, young is relative. What are we going to say, 18 and under? I don't know. We haven't put an age on it. A young person enjoying the outdoors, whether it's hunting or fishing or shooting or trapping or snowmobiling or whatever it is. Send me that picture and I will post it with the hashtag Forward Fuels Tradition. Or you can just post it on your Facebook page or anywhere else and put the hashtag on there, Forward Fuels Tradition. Forward Fuels Tradition. The folks at the Forward Corporation are keeping an eye on that, keeping track of that. And once a month, they will draw a winner from that, and you'll get a gift certificate to the Forward convenience store. So how cool is that? Josh says fishing should be picking up real nice on the bay. Temps are good. Only you hardcore guys are out there now. Greg says, hard to get motivated on my deer hunting this year. Why is that, Greg? I've gone through that. I understand that, but tell me what you're thinking. Bruce, good evening. How are you? Chad, anything going on the bay? Walleye, would like to get up. Okay, Chad, I talked to Captain Mark Pananzek on the radio show today for air this weekend, and he said the fishing has been good. His fishing, you know what else is good right now? Whitefish off the piers. Whitefish off the piers. Let me tell you before I forget who is on the Outdoor Magazine radio show this week. I start out with Rob Miller, talking about using a tracking dog. Now, Rob was one of the first people in the state who actually used a tracking dog, to recover fatally wounded animals. He told about a new regulation that is in place this year, that the dogs don't have to be on a leash. And he says it's a big deal because when a dog gets on a track, they can now let that dog go and they run up on the deer. And he says many times, lots of times, a deer that has been hit, if they're fatally wounded, they'll stop and they'll bay up like a bear would do. And that gives the hunters the opportunity to get up on those animal, and then you can reload and you can shoot it and take care of the deer. So very, very cool. Tom Campbell of Woods and Waters News also. In hour number 2, Richard P. Smith tells the story of that big UP whitetail buck that he shot. He also talks about a couple of other things, including deer yards and the lack of deer yards and the lack of habitat. Steve Wyndham from MUCC on why you should join MUCC. This week's Ask Avery question. This comes from Bill Lincoln. He says, Mike, my brother lost his deer license. So I got online and it says, if you lose your license, you have to buy another one. And I wanted to make sure that was the correct information. Okay, so if you lose your deer license, or say any license that you need a kill tag for, turkey license, I checked with Lieutenant Mark Papanoff from the DNR. He says, your listener is correct. If they lost their license, they can purchase another, but it will be full price since it is another license and a kill tag. It'll replace the original. They can purchase it online or at any store that sells licenses. They'll just have to tell the retailer that it is a replacement. I said, so what if it's a license like a base license or a fishing license? Can't you just reprint that one? He said, yes, indeed, that can be reprinted. And if you do it yourself from the DNR website or the app, you can do it for free. And in our third hour, getting back to why I'm giving you the rundown here, my email is Mike at Mike Avery. Oh, Amy's email. Amy's not with us anymore, but if you go to the website, mucc.org, Amy's email is there. I believe it's atrotter@mucc.org, atrotter@mucc.org, but please look it up. Oh, there's Amy right there. atrotter@mucc.org, atrotter@mucc.org. Captain Mark Pananzek joins me to talk about fall walleye fishing on Saginaw Bay, waterfowl hunting on Saginaw Bay, and also whitefish action off the piers, specifically Tawas. And then wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner joins me to wrap it all up. All right, what else is on your mind? Paul got to watch a dog work his buddy's gutch at 8 point. It's phenomenal. The deer was recovered successfully. There was no way you could have found that deer. That happens so often. Chad says the Michigan DNR cell phone app is a great way to keep track of licenses. I of course, it can't keep track of your kill tag, Chad, but you and I both know that. Dave, how are you? Yeah, I love that app. I think the app is very, very good. So I was talking about deer hunting. I talked about the rut is on. Hunt your hunt. I probably will not be on here next week, either for a behind the mic or for a Wednesday night live, because next Wednesday is the opening day of gun season. If I can, I will, but don't count on it. So this is the last chance we're going to have to talk before firearm season. If you want to hold out for a big old buck, have at it. Have at it. If you are limited in time or you don't care about a big rack and you want to shoot a young buck, have at it. And if you want to shoot a doe, God bless you. I would just say, look at it. Maybe, depending on what part of the area of the state that you're in, if you have an opportunity to shoot a spike buck or a big old doe, maybe take the buck or the doe. But my point is, hunt your hunt. It's your license. It's your experience. It's your decision. Don't let yourself be influenced by the outdoor television hunting shows. Don't let yourself be influenced by social media. Don't let yourself be influenced by online pressure by your buddies or whatever. It's your tag. Take the animal that makes you happy. But don't pull the trigger until you see an animal in front of you that if you take, it does make you happy. I talked about the forward fuels tradition. I talked about tucking the deer's tongue back in its mouth. That's not a big deal, but it's a big deal. Here's another big deal. Wednesday Night Live, December 6th, which is actually coming up pretty fast now. We are having another Wednesday Night Live at the Forward Corporation Lumberjack Restaurant in West Branch. Wednesday, December 6th. It'll start at 7 o'clock like all Wednesday Night Lives do. There is no fee to join us. You will have to pay for your meal. I'm not buying you dinner. You pay for your meal off the menu, but we do need reservations so we know how many people are going to be there. You can call for reservations. I don't know if you can call right now or if you have to wait till the morning, but here's the number. 989-343-0892. 989-343-0892 is the number to call for reservations for the Wednesday Night Live at the Lumberjack on December 6th. Chad says the weather on the opener for mid-Michigan temps, 44 to 57 with southwest winds. Well, could be better. Could be better. Oh, and one final thing. I got a call from Gina Cannell of Jay's Sporting Goods yesterday. Gina, a good friend of mine. She runs the gun department at Jay's Claire store. She said, Mike, we have a suppressor here with your name on it. I said, you do? I've been trying to get a suppressor for my Brenton 350 Legend for a long time now. And I thought I had the process in the works, but I didn't hear about anything. So I didn't think it was going to happen. Gina says, yep, we have a Brenton 350 Legend suppressor here at Jay's for you with your name on it. I said, okay, great. How do I get it? She said, you come to the store, you go to one of our kiosks and you fill out the information. You apply for your tax stamp. You pay some kind of like $170 fee, and then you go into the system. And I said, cool. So if I come up here, she called me yesterday. So if I come up here like the next day and get this all in the system, can I have that suppressor by the opener next week? She just laughed. She says, no, it could take like 4 months to get your suppressor. Could be sooner, but that's better than the year time frame that was out there. She said it could be 4 months before you get your suppressor. So, Lost Glove says, my social director and I will be at the Lumberjack. Looking forward to it. Excellent, Lost Glove. I will look forward to that as well. Okay, what else? Don't forget about the promo code Avery Fall 23, Avery Fall 23. Another promo code, we'll go to primaloutdoors.com. That's michiganbrand.net, michiganbrand.net, and use the promo code Avery 20, or is it Mike 20, to save 20% on everything on the website. Once you shoot suppressed, you won't want to shoot any other way. I know that. If I had always shot suppressed, I wouldn't need these little things that are in my ears right now. But we didn't have back then. Right? All right. You're going to hear something here now. Here it comes. There it comes. You know what that means? Time to wrap up this edition of Wednesday Night Live. Again, thank you to Amy Trotter for joining me. MUCC.org, MUCC.org. Her email address is atrotter@MUCC.org, atrotter@MUCC.org. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address is Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I can't wait to hear from you. Please do not hesitate to reach out. Send me your pictures, your deer pictures. If it's a young person in the picture, give it a hashtag. Forward Fuels Tradition. Forward Fuels Tradition. All right, my friends, have a good night. Thank you, Amy, and thank you for joining me on this edition of Wednesday Night Live. Have a good night, my friends.